It's my pleasure to welcome you all here today for this convergence of industry leaders. Recent developments world over have reiterated the importance of having a resilient, agile, and sustainable supply chain, and the importance of technology in building such a supply chain, and the need for reimagining and transforming our systems to adapt to changing needs and trends, to provide insights to leaders and managers to help them take decisions to make their processes more efficient and profitable, while retaining the focus on the customers. We at IBM and Accure are honored to have you all here today to share your insights about the latest trends and challenges in supply chain space. These discussions are sure to provide a lot of food for thought and some new ideas to all of us here. I'll provide a brief overview of the events today. To begin with, we will have a panel discussion on the topic, the next generation digital supply chain, making organizations faster, flexible, and efficient. This will be followed by a short demo by Accure on how to deliver the perfect order with a complete omni-channel order fulfillment platform. We will be rounding off the event with a roundtable discussion on how brands can leverage omni-channel to deliver frictionless and incredible shopping experiences. So without further ado, let me welcome Sharada Shringeshwara, who will be the moderator for the first event of the day, the panel discussion. Sharada is an associate partner at Accure. A technology and data enthusiast, Sharada is a seasoned leader who brings in product leadership to the table by balancing in-depth understanding and rich experience of the retail domain, software engineering, and data science. Welcome everyone again, and Sharada, yours.
Thank you, Bharti. Good morning, everyone. I would be introducing our panelists today. It gives me an immense pleasure bringing in these panelists for our discussion today. The discussion would be on the next generation of supply chain. So first, I want to introduce you to Praveen Shrikhande. Sir. So Praveen is Chief Digital and Information Officer at Aditya Birla Fashions and Retail Private Limited. Praveen has been spearheading strategic partner engagement, technology transformation, and information security agenda at Aditya Birla Group. Welcome, Praveen. We have Bhavin Kotari, Senior Vice President at Lifestyle International Limited. Bhavin focuses on technology transformation initiative at Lifestyle, and as a technology leader, he has an outstanding knowledge of retail business along with 2 decades of information technology experience. Welcome, Bhavin. We have Satish Panchapakesan, Senior Vice President, Chief Information Officer at Arvind Fashions. Satish comes with an experience in consulting and service delivery spanning customer engagements across US, Europe, and APAC markets. He has been leading heavy-duty transformations for technology portfolios from concept to delivery. We also have Manoj Kansal with us today. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Kitabeli, a social commerce startup based out of Indonesia. An engineering leader, he has been leading order and warehouse verticals for Myntra before he joined Kitabeli. Welcome, Manoj. Last but not the least, we have Sunny Nandwani, founder and managing director of Accure Consulting, a technocrat, entrepreneur, and a supply chain expert. He founded Accure Consulting, a company fueling the supply chain innovations primarily on supply chain execution space. I welcome each one of you. So we all know customer expectations has been growing, and it's also leading increasing service expectations combined with a much stronger granularization on orders. Those in supply chain would agree with me when I say impossible is possible, and also most of the great companies actually differentiate themselves in the supply chain arena. So as we see the digital era, which has brought in consumer focus and consumer digital technologies, which is also aiding supply chain structures to transform into intelligent digital models. So I want to start this discussion probably with a generic question. It is said that supply chain fulfillment strategies has to deliver both on financial and service expectations. So what are some of the initiatives which you have been focusing in your organizations, which kind of marries both digital and fulfillment, physical fulfillment?
Yeah. Morning, everyone. I think the model of retail, right, especially fashion retail, where I come from, it's been seeing that shift from offline to online, and by virtue of that, in the last few years, and especially during the last 2 years through COVID, it's been a disruptive event. And in that context, I think the whole story of how we service customers and how do we run a profitable business has completely changed.
Yeah.
I mean, our past models, which were largely offline, had a very well-defined model which had been running for decades, and we knew what to do. Right, online changed all that, and clearly, where in an offline world, when customers walking into store, you are and shopping for what is in the store. While when you are in the online world, you are actually exposing your entire merchandise, or whatever you decide to, and customers shopping and then fulfilling that. Now, to be able to do that effectively is completely presents a different set of challenges, and especially for retailers who are who have a large store network and obviously are looking at leveraging that in delivering to their customers and running both profitable operations. So one key thing that we realized is that while the typical online players, right, who started off with native online, had a certain model for fulfillment, which was primarily around warehouses, and then taking those warehouses over a period of time closer to customer. I mean, whether it's Amazon or Myntra, all of them, that's the model that they are driving to. We, as offline retailers, started with a network of stores, and our challenge was to enable that store network for e-commerce delivery. And through COVID, that was the big change that we saw, where we moved from maybe 10 stores which were deployed for omni-channel or fulfillment for e-commerce to almost 1,000 stores which were done in a short period of few months. That put immense strain on the supply chain, because one is the whole store inventory, the accuracy of store inventory becomes extremely critical the moment you are exposing your inventory online. So while in the store, it doesn't matter. Customer walks in, picks up a product, they try it out. If they like it, they take it. Right? If there's a mismatch in your size, color, what is in good condition, what is not in good condition, all those things won't make a difference. In online, it makes all the difference. I mean, it is at the end of the day, especially in an industry like fashion, where your typical depths of merchandise, of a particular SKU are very small in a particular location, in a particular store. If that product is not accurately represented in your system and exposed online, and the whole supply chain can get disrupted. And I think a lot of focus went into streamlining that. So we've come a long way from when we started. I mean, today, let's say our accuracy around that, our ability to fulfill from our store network for online orders, almost now 50% of our orders across all our brands, we fulfill from our store network, and not just for our own brands.com, but also for marketplaces. So, with the major marketplaces, we have enabled our stores as their fulfillment locations to deliver on the customer promise. So here again, when it comes to customers, the benefit of having a delivery from store clearly is that your delivery costs are lower because you're delivering from a much shorter distance, and also the timeline, right? So today, we are looking at models where we can move to same-day delivery or next-day delivery on our own, as well as working with some of our marketplace partners to see how that can be enabled. And all of that is only possible by ensuring your entire process of taking order and then fulfilling it is completely streamlined and with a high level of accuracy and consistency in delivery. So this basic supply chain streamlining is what we've done. I think going forward, some of the areas that we need to focus on is being able to identify that particular piece of item end to end, and technologies like RFID or unique serial numbering are areas that we're exploring with. We've implemented unique serial numbering, for instance, in our warehouses, but now we are looking at solutions like RFID to be taken to stores, which will further help in getting that visibility of inventory, accuracy, and then the ability to fulfill orders seamless manner, delivering clearly better customer satisfaction as well as better financial performance.
Yeah. Bhavin, you want to add something to it?
Thanks, Praveen. See, every organizations are different. So I am also coming from a fashion background, but again, the price point, what ABFRL flows and what price points, what lifestyle carries. When I say lifestyle, we have a lifestyle, we have a max, we have a furniture and household basically. So again, every category and every price points are different. So strategy changes accordingly. So when you look at like say max where say price point falls between 300 to 350 rupees only, the whole strategy gets changed actually. And that's where you have to ensure that, your splits, your back orders, your cancellations are extremely in control to be profitable. So going to the core point of a financial KPIs or service KPIs, a substantial focus is required to ensure that how strong I plan. So when we talk about online, I think one of the key area which requires an extreme focus is planning, merchandising. Okay, I have Agnes here. A lot of people may not be knowing a lot of things we have learned with Agnes when he was in Landmark. He will agree on my point here. The stronger you plan your inventory, the stronger you plan your assortment across the region, the stronger you plan the catalog which can ensure reducing your split or even bringing to the ratio of say 1:1 to 1.1 or 1.2. What does that mean? Is order to shipment ratio typically. Okay, that's where the profitability lies. In a simple language, if you ask me, this is my answer. So our also focus remains on a higher basket size for a shipment, not an order. Okay, order definitely we can get the customer by variety of buy one get ones or some invoice level offering, etc. and all. But when that order comes to the ground, okay, are you splitting that order or are you ensuring the full basket delivery? That's where the whole game plays out here. Okay. So, and that doesn't happen its own. It requires a substantial planning, merchandising in backend, and that's where we focus in. Okay. So one is technology. I presume a lot of technology and tools are available in market now, but there is a black box, and our focus is on those black box because stores are not warehouse. We talk about Omni, we talk about warehouse, but the moment you grow, we see your split increases actually. Okay, and that's where that a sweet spot has to be identified. That at which level my customer order can be fulfilled, at a city level, at a zone level, or at a pan-India level. How you source your order, like, should I focus on customer TAT versus the full order? Okay. So a lot of things goes behind, which is beyond technology. Okay. And yes, but technology has to help on this area as the maturity keeps increasing. Being profitable in 300 rupees price point is the most critical task which we today focus on. And I give my highest focus in both this area, serviceability and I'll say the financial KPI, with the right set of inventory in your region or at your warehouse. Okay, because that takes care of everything. Okay, so that's what I would be concluding here. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Bhavin. Satish, you want to add on
Sure.
how it is done?
I think you kind of lined up all the fashion and the lifestyle brands together,
Looks
right?
like that,
So
yeah.
makes things easier and much more easier because I'm kind of taking the wisdom of both Praveen and Bhavin here. So I think I kind of resonate to everything that Praveen and Bhavin said, right? So I think first thing is fashion is there is a lot of seasonality and freshness to the products that we actually provide to the market. and that actually decides on how profitable, you know, a particular season is, a particular category is, or a set of merchandise in a particular store is, right? So a lot of these ideas, you know, from a fashion merchandise perspective, were really put to test in the COVID, because primarily you had lockdowns and you had containment zones, your high streets were closed, your malls were closed, and so what do you do with the inventory, right? So it's all cash is king as far as retail is concerned, and if your inventory turnarounds are going to get stuck the way they got stuck, you know, the last 2 years, you know, it's obviously a serious dent on the business. So I think, having said that, it's been a great opportunity for us to kind of rewire the entire system to a great extent. And a lot of it is predicated on 2-3 ideas, right? The first idea is, you know, obviously, as Praveen mentioned, in terms of how do you enable your stores to become a warehouse or a fulfillment center in its own right, and how do you start increasing the coverage of the serviceability from the stores, so that, you know, you're able to get a reasonable amount of unit economics within that store to service a market or a pin code, and then you know, become profitable as far as that store is concerned. And then how do you incentivize the store to do that, right? So that, you know, they are also taking the right level of ownership and responsibility in terms of stocking the right assortment, the right depth, and all of that. So that is one aspect. The second aspect is, which we tried, you know, in a limited scale, was an extreme level of hyper localization, where you actually attach a set of pin codes to a particular store, and then you know, because anyway the customers don't walk into the store, or were not walking into the store. So how do you make sure that, you know, you create a hyper localized presence online? Say for example, a CMH Road US Polo store, or an Indiranagar US Polo store. You create a, you know, indiranagar.uspolo.com kind of a you know, a microsite, and then you create a, you know, kind of a campaign towards customers who are actually oriented around that area, pin code basis. And then, you know, how do you start servicing them so that, you know, they have the comfort of choosing what they want through an endless aisle kind of an experience, which you can provide if they visit the store or through online. And then the order can be serviced, you know, right at the, it's basically taking the store to the living room, right, in some sense. While some of these ideas were very good, it had certain, you know, limiting factors in terms of, you know, how much you will be able to scale up. But definitely great learnings, right, in terms of serviceability and efficiencies that you can actually bring. And the whole problem actually got shifted more from an inventory problem to a logistics problem, which is actually a good problem to have, because logistics was always, you know, innovating, and you know, there were a lot of new things happening in the country with respect to logistics. And inventory was something that, you know, we anyway, you know, had to take accountability on, and, you know, we had the pricing power on that across all the brands. So I think that way, you know, we were able to move a lot of, build a lot of traction, right, purely from a hyper localization perspective. The third area is essentially around the demand side of things, right? Today, if you look at demand, is very, we don't know how the demand comes, right? That's one of the biggest challenges. Now we have revenge shopping. Last quarter, maybe prior to that, we had a little bit of, you know, post-Delta revenge shopping, and then there was a bit of a Omicron lull, and then there's a post-Omicron revenge shopping, and then, you know, and everything, and then there is end of season sale in between, and all of that happens. So the whole demand pattern and ability to predict demand has become very, very, I would say, fragile, right? So how do you make sure that, you know, you're able to keep your supply chain agile, right, from capturing the demand perspective and converting the demand into a, you know, a maximum motive and maximizing the selling opportunity. So these are some of the more emerging challenges that we are seeing. And I think there is, globally, there is a lot for us to learn. And I'm sure there is a lot for global companies to learn from the Indian companies. And some of the simple things are around, you know, platforming of the entire fabric fashion chain, right? Starting from the yarning to garmenting to actual creation of the end product. something which companies like Zara and Mango have been doing it for years. Maybe that's something which will go mainstream as we get into the next a few seasons. Then there are companies like Shein, for example, in China, right, who actually produce very short life cycle products, right? Every 2 weeks they have a new fashion. It's called ultra fast fashion. And how do these companies actually work through the ultra fast fashion model, without impacting the supply chain or being profitable? And Shein, by the way, was probably one of the most downloaded app in the US, much more than Amazon itself, right? During the Thanksgiving of 2021. So which means, there is obviously serious disruption happening, both from the demand side as well as the fulfillment side. And end of the day, as we all agree, we want to, have full season, full price seasons. We want to have minimum discounting, and we want to have maximum, customer parity, be it whether they shop online or offline. I think that is what will really make us successful in the long run. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Satish. So just want to kind of add a little bit to that question, because that was more on strategy, and I know I have the engineering leader here. So obviously more of a technology question, because obviously technology is a pillar for transformation. So according to Gartner's report, which kind of I went through on emerging, maturing supply chain, technology is a major source for competitive edge. And it's been stated by 2025, 25% of supply chain decisions would be made across intelligent ecosystem. So I would like to know from you and probably from Sunny on how advanced analytics and AI systems are aiding the human decision making, and in the future and the near future, which you foresee.
Absolutely. So I'm like, thanks for the question. So what I understand is, I'm like, say, if you look at supply chain, it's basically a generic process specific to the product or category that you serve. Yeah. Also, it is one of the major, factors which decides the success of the business that you are in. Because it's a major cost that you are going to burn. And also it is the most important factor when it comes to the customer experience. So depending on what category that you serve, what is the serviceability that you want to provide, and what is the kind of customer base and the kind of customer experience that you want to provide, you have to ensure that your supply chain works in the same way. And with online, what happens is your business gets amplified. It gets amplified in the sense that you have to basically serve a large demographics, a varied set of customers, and you have to, and for you to be successful, what you need to basically ensure, from supply chain, which is a very, very specific process and involving a lot of complex decisions that happen in the whole process, you have to ensure that you have to remove subjectivity. Because if you do not remove subjectivity from it, you will never be successful in ensuring that you provide the kind of experience at the cost that you want. And when it comes to removing subjectivity and making it absolute or objective, you need technology for that. Now, in terms of how do you basically, as you said, 25% of the decisions are supposed to be made by AI ML. I think a lot of these companies which have evolved or matured in this whole process of technology, a lot of them are doing a large part of it already. In the sense, if you look at supply chain, which basically entails right from, inbound, or rather to put as sourcing of the item, all the way up to delivery, there are various legs. In the sense, what is it that I want to source? Who should make the decision? Now it should be based on what you have sold, what is the kind of demand, what is the kind of customers that I see, what is the kind of season, and what is going to be the festivities or various other aspects that are going to come in. Now, given that, there are also, what you can also look at is, hey, what sells on other platforms? So do I have a scraper which basically goes to various platforms, identifies, hey, these are the products that sell, this is what I sell, this is what my past data says. then you can very easily decide that, hey, this is the kind of product that I want to basically zero in, and then you basically procure it. Similarly, I'm like, when it comes to inwarding, I'm like the QC process. It's a very, very involved process. I'm like, and it depends on the kind of category. I'm like a QC for merchandise, like a fashion, to a shoe, to a fresh, it differs. But you have to ensure that you basically do QC absolutely as expected. Otherwise, you are not going to be fulfill, or you are going to basically have a lot of leakages and at the same time lot of losses that you would basically suffer. So when it comes to QC, can you basically deploy OCR? Can you deploy AI? And then I'm like, we were at certain point in time evaluating. I'm like, hey, do I keep a T-shirt on top of a table, put a camera on top of it? Can it basically measure the size, length, breadth? Can it say that, hey, this is the color? Read the tag from the OCR and say, hey, I'm like, the tag says that it is medium. The size says it is medium. I expect it to be the, I'm like, the quality check should only pass after that. Because if I don't validate this, what would happen is I will start incurring more and more returns, which is a very, very costly affair. Whether I'm like, now coming back to how do you basically place the item in your warehouse? I'm like, what item should be placed next to what? Who should decide it? And at the same time, if you look at it, how do you basically optimize your network? I'm like, route optimization. I'm like, or rather to put it as network optimization. If I put it the whole, I'm like, if I look at the whole prospect, I'm like, what is the number of resources I have? What is the back orders do I have? How many orders am I supposed to deliver on certain days? And hence, how should I deploy people in the warehouse? How many people should be there in the inwarding? How many should be doing picking? How many should be doing packing? Can I create a back pressure by itself so that the whole process works like a assembly line, rather than saying that, hey, I want to make a lot of this decision through human intelligence. I'm like, which basically, again, as I said, is subject to subjectivity, which leads to a lot of errors being made. And hence, if you look at it, I'm like, if you want to create an effective supply chain, you would require technology, and a lot of these technology which make decision by themselves by reading and understanding your behavioral aspects. And I think it rightly points, I'm like, while it says 25, I believe that it will grow beyond 25% when it comes to how AI and ML will be deployed in the whole supply chain. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Manoj.
Yeah. So I think in this panel, from use cases and supply chain standpoint, it's all covered. We had the heavy panel. I'll talk more from data now engineering standpoint, right? See, as an industry, we are doing, like, overall IT industry and technology industry, we are doing very well, exceptionally good in building large and complex systems. But now the trend which we are seeing, especially in last 2 years, it is shifting towards building massive complex system which actually can process the data, where the core business value of the system comes from analysis of data rather than just the software part. So that is the trend we are seeing. And I was just reading the Gartner number as well on the data infrastructure spending. So in 2020, it has already, it's a record high. More than 60 billion USD is already spent, and I am sure, like, the last 2 year data, when it gets published, it will be much more. So what Manoj mentioned actually is reinforced through this data as well. When we talk about data infrastructure, it basically helps you serve two purposes. One is, like, on the business side, you get insights and you can make better decision, which is basically called your more of analytics thing. And other is where you use data intelligence in consumer facing application. So one is the BI part, where you talk about the dashboards, you want to look at your stock fill report, how is it happening. Other part is more about intelligent promising. Can I just show the promising date even before the checkout? So this is where the analytics operational part come up. When we talk about the BI, it is driven by data warehouse. So data warehouse, we all know it is a concept which is more storing the structured data. And it is easy to derive insights, easy and quick to do using SQL and now even Python. When we talk about operational analytics, it is more towards data lake. Data lake started coming in. Data lake is raw data. So it is more faster, easy to store, flexible, cost effective than data warehouse. So in fact, 2 years back, I was talking to some BI experts in a similar forum, and there was a discussion that they might converge at some point, which I think is put to silence now. They are not going to converge. In fact, there is a new term, lakehouse, right, which we have seen. So lakehouse gives you benefit of both data warehouse. It gives you the data part. You are able to get more and more data, but you also have to get the cost-effective flexibility, agility, which comes from this. So lakehouse is the upcoming trend from data engineering and infrastructure standpoint. But is it applicable to all the brands? I would say, like Bhavin mentioned, every brand is unique. They have their own business model. What suits your business, you have to define your blueprint for data architecture. It can be data warehouse and mix of data lake, or do you really have use cases to that complexity of lake house? These needs to be evaluated. So, but the winner will be who can win this data game. I feel like that will play a very competitive edge, the one who can win the data, because softwares are moving from just code to code and data. So the derivation is changing.
So data is the new oil, right? So in today's technology, as we see that technology is actually innovated in a breakneck speed. And also there are a lot of environmental factors which come in when we talk about supply chain. We had pandemic for last 2 years where we couldn't even see face to face the people. We have environment disasters which happen almost regularly every year now. We also see a volatile environment where countries are waging war. So these disruptions will have an impact on supply chain for sure. So how do organizations are dealing with such challenges in each of your case?
So I think it's a broad question. Maybe I'll try to take a global perspective and then specifically for us. So globally, I think we are all clear, all these events are disrupting supply chains and we are seeing it. I mean, and see, what has happened is over the last, 50 years, right? The mantra was shrink your supply chain, right? Shrink it as much as you can. China, as you said, right, has taken it to that level in fashion, but that's only in fashion, right? But if you take any other industry, whether it's electronics, automotive, any other industry, the focus has been to shrink the supply chain. Everyone wanted to bring down what is my inventory in my supply chain to the minimum, just in time. All these things were designed to do that, right? Obviously, nobody thought that this would get disrupted so big time when, the geopolitical events that we're talking of today have happened. And now there is a realization that, okay, that's one trend. The second, of course, was cost minimization. That is, get everything consolidated, like, manufacture at scale, minimize cost, and have a few large producers who supply the world. Right? And obviously, the whole manufacturing moving to China has been a clear trend, that happened, right? To China or Taiwan for certain electronics and so on. So this is where the big changes happened, right? Now people are realizing that that's not necessarily the best way. I mean, I know today we are sufferers when we are buying electronics, right? To set up offices, we want to buy switches, LAN switches, right? Such basic stuff. And the lead time from suppliers is 6 months, 6 to 8 months. It's incredible. I don't know if other you also hearing that, right? So it's incredible that today, because of a war or a pandemic, we are suddenly in a situation where something as basic as a switch, LAN switch, is not available, right? So I think this will recast how people globally think about it, and especially in areas like electronics, automobiles, which are in many such cases, people are realizing that the dependency is in that one semiconductor, which is made by that one supplier for the world, and who is impacted, because of being present in certain geography. So that will change. I think a lot of this will rework to moving things closer to the markets, more distribution, so less economies of scale and actually higher costs. So I think the trade-off between a higher cost but more reliability is going to start to happen more aggressively over the next few years, and it's already starting to happen. Right? We are already hearing of automobile companies setting up their own fabs, right? Why? Because though it's not that the cost of making chips will be better than Semiconductor Corporation of Taiwan, but they at least have the assurance that they'll get it even if it is 20% higher, because the cost of the car, that component didn't matter. But then your whole production is disrupted because of not having that one component. So fine. So that's on the global scale. I think I hope that that's a trend, that we should see a better trade-off between reliability and cost, moving more towards reliability, so shorter supply chains and maybe more local manufacturing. The other element also on this is sustainability, because the other big trend is the whole environmental and sustainability-led trend. And with oil prices going up and the focus on minimizing consumption of fossil fuels, right? Longer supply chains obviously need a lot more of that. And if that cost keeps going up, plus the push is towards not doing that, that's again going to be the other factor, which is going to start moving supply chains closer to the markets, right? So I think that's the broader trend. Coming to our industry, I think it's not so bad, or let's say specifically in our company, because we sell in India, 85% of our product is made in India, and so it's already very localized. And our supply chains at best extend to neighboring countries, Bangladesh, Vietnam, China at most, or Korea, right? So that's where it is. So, again, the nature of fashion industry, leave aside Shein, but otherwise, it has been long lead times, fashion cycles, so you always have a long lead time to make your product and then sell. So that disruption is not that much when it comes to fashion industry. Again, as you shrink it and as you increase your dependency on imports, is when things will change.
Yeah. Satish, you want to add something?
So I think what we are seeing today, to a great extent, is a kind of I would say a replay of a lot of past incidents, right? For instance, if you go back and look at say the trend from 1970s to 80s to 90s, I think every decade has had its own type of some triggers which actually pulled off a need to relook at your supply chain, right? So if you look at the 1970s, Toyota came out with the whole idea of just in time, and that almost became the de facto, and the whole world kind of tried to emulate that, irrespective of which the industry was, and they saw huge amount of benefits in doing that, and a lot of processes and systems and partnerships were aligned towards a just in time type of a behavior, right? But then slowly, if you look at 90s, it became more towards how do I start getting more and more customizations, more and more standardizations, right? And then probably 2000s was more about customizations and personalizations, right? So now we're talking about in the fashion industry, for instance, we're talking about hyper personalization and at scale, right? So each one of these, and I'm sure I'm just painting a very broad brush in terms of how things have changed, but for every industry, be it for automobiles or be it for fast fashion or be it for electronics, each of these trends have been applicable in its own right? And everything has actually, worked because people have re-geared and rewired their systems based on how they're going to fulfill and how they're actually going to meet the customer demand, right? So what we see today in terms of, companies like Shein are great examples where they've taken adaptability to an extreme level, right? Where I can sense demand through a TikTok video, right? And actually, I don't need a designer to tell me what my next product should look like, for instance, right? Just a TikTok video or an Insta influencer can actually tell me what my next product should look like. And I will make that product in a size of 50s or 100s over a matter of a week or 10 days. And I will make sure it is in the shelf of the customer on the 11th day, right? So that's the kind of one end of the spectrum that we are talking about in terms of adaptability, which we are seeing in live action, right? And then obviously the question is, if hyper personalized, scalable and adaptable supply chain is going to be the next the 2020 onwards, post-COVID normal, if you were to put, these three keywords, then what are the things that one needs to do, right, to actually evolve, to this new paradigm, right? Basically, how do you make things personal, hyper-personal? How do you make things adaptable, and how do you do it at scale, right? And I'm sure these trends are just things like data and the data infrastructure, starting from how do you capture the demand and how do you start. Some of these are going to be possible only through prediction, right? You cannot, and it's not going to be regular, your R square values of a linear model, where you assume that the cause and the effect will have some kind of a linear relationship, and then you can start modeling it, and then you can start forecasting it. That's not going to work, right? It's probably going to be more the Facebook profit type of model, right, which actually models a lot of non-linear stuff and then is able to create clusters of patterns of data. And I think that's where the whole data infrastructure and building AI and intelligence is going to be very critical to this type of a thought process, right? So I think as managers and as leaders, most of our challenges is going to be really to inculcate, to first of all learn, because I think statistics and mathematics have been probably 3 decades back for many of us. So I think that's what we all try to learn, and we try to kind of imbibe that in the culture of the organization. That's going to be very critical, to do anything relevant going forward from my perspective.
Thanks, Satish. So I think one last question for each one of you actually. As we come to normalcy of all this pandemic which we had, how do you want to put it in one word or a sentence, how the customer expectations, customer behavior has changed post-pandemic era? Anything which you have seen?
I think customer is now, here and now, right? So if you're not here and now, you lose him, her rather, right?
You want to add anything, Manoj?
I'm like, I would say customers are demanding, but then I think there is a huge amount of, so as my co-panelist said, it's here and now for sure, but then there are various other factors in the sense with pandemic, customer has realized that they have to live their life the way they want to live it, and hence customers don't want to compromise. What they want is what they want, and you need to understand that. On top of that, what I feel is there is, with everything, there is a lot of caution that customer applies to each and everything. So you need to be cautious of the value system, or rather to put it as the things that the customer values at this point in time. It might be related to how you interact with the customer, both digitally and also physically when you're a delivery agent or anybody goes there. So you have to basically change all those behaviors at this point in time, because with pandemic, the customer is much more self-centric in a way. They want to live their life the way they want it here and now, and they want exactly what they want.
Anything which you want to add, Bhavin and Praveen? What you have seen post-pandemic?
Yeah, I think both of them answered the same feeling, yeah. So, pampered customer in one word, if I say now, okay. And only solution is to keep pampering, because that's where only you will survive. But yeah, depth of customer base is increased, from typically from India perspective, tier 1, tier 2 has gone to tier 3, tier 4. The age profiles of customers, online, offline, because the reach has increased substantially actually. So even a lot of analysis of past may require a refresh here, okay, and your profiling should go beyond age, beyond geography, and that's where I see personally a lot of opportunity for our retailers, We can see in offline world already we are saying the growth plan of every single retailer is like unprecedented actually. Like if a retailer was opening say 20, 30, 40 stores, a maximum pre-pandemic, now we are listening retailers talking about 100 stores, 150 stores or 200 stores in a year or 2 years. Not a single town is like now going to be untouched. So that itself shows that there is a demand across the geography. And yeah, just keep pampering. That's the only word I have. Thanks, yeah.
Maybe I'll put a little bit of caution on what we think we know, right? I think it's still early days, right? We obviously pandemic was an inflection point, so people moved online. A lot of people had never experienced online, and now almost everybody has experienced online in at least some category, if not multiple categories. But post-pandemic, whether that will be the new norm, and clearly abroad, if you look at let's say China or the US, yes, there has been a decisive shift towards online in most categories, right? But India is always different, and as Bhavin just said, most retailers are opening stores. Now, if you're saying if things are moving online, why are people opening stores? But the reality is all business leaders in this country believe that they still need to open stores and in a big way, right? So there are conflicting trends playing out here. And where we will settle, I think it's still early days. Indian customer is always very different. People thought like the rest of the world, everybody will start wearing, Western wear, right? And there'll be no future for Indian wear, and a lot of people have been proved wrong on that, right? So we will find out. I think over the next 6 to 12 months, we'll really find out. It will be a norm which will settle between online and offline, and different trends. But I don't think today it's very clear that it is one way or the other completely. So.
Thanks, Praveen. I think with that, we'll come to an end of our panel discussion. I know you might have a lot of questions in your mind. You can always talk to our panelists offline. And as rightly said, I think we are in an exciting times where we have to pamper customers. There are confusing trends, but I think supply chain is an interesting area where innovation is happening. With that, I want to thank each one of our panelists for sharing their experience and such an insightful discussion which we had. Thank you.